Um, I think that if you look at MAGA and you're looking at, the so-called new conservatives. I mean, I don't know how I consider myself an old conservative. I'm certainly not what you see in the MAGA crowd, but I will say that, if we're now starting to divide up from a generational perspective, there's the old conservatives on the one side and the new conservatives on the other. The new conservatives seem to be playing fast, hard, and loose with terms that could be sort of anti-Semitic. And it's very difficult to, I mean, when you're looking at it from an outsider's perspective, and I'm so glad I live here in Australia, but when you look from an outsider's perspective at the things and the languages that come out of the United States at the moment, you want to believe that the worst of all that stuff is behind the United States. But you've got younger people now coming up and really meaning what they say. I mean, I heard recently on another podcast this morning, quite a credible podcast, that some idiots within the youth wing of MAGA have been talking about kicking the Jews out of the United States. They've been talking about setting up gas chambers. I mean, horrific stuff. And yet they're allied to the Trump bandwagon in some strange way. Um, how do you then, how do you square that with the other reality in the United States, and that is that AIPAC, as the old order of Israeli interests in the United States, have been overplaying their hand so long that the anger that has been unleashed as a consequence of Gaza, is fueling this anti-Semitism, which I can't see disappearing anytime soon. The damage has been done now. So how does the United States walk back from this? How does MAGA in particular walk back from this? And should those younger new conservatives who are a bit loose with their lips be somehow publicly reprimanded for going down this particular path?
Well, I'd like to think that they should be, but I doubt they will.
Uh,
If I'm not mistaken, Vice President Vance has already come out publicly to their defense, talking about pearl clutching in response to WhatsApp messaging. I don't
yes,
th
that's right.
I don't think anybody I, just like a cliche, a truism is I don't think anybody changes their minds in this day and age. I
Mm.
don't think you have a lot of meaningful conversations where people are made to see the error of their ways or even to reconsider their basic um, tenets of faith. Uh, but I mean, of course, there's an unholy alliance here. I mean, if Israel invites, if an Israeli government minister invites Tommy Robinson for an official visit to Israel,
Mm.
and calls him a great friend to Israel, and talks about his great contribution to the Israeli cause. If Israeli government ministers talk about the Great Replacement theory, they talk about
Mm.
the West crumbling before the alliance of radical Islamism and woke left-wing opinions. Um, then who's Israel going to blame? I mean, Israel is anti-Semitic. You know, if there was look, I'll say this because I can get away with it.
Mm.
If there was a modern day Hitler who would be going after Muslims, clearly and particularly, he would find a great ally in Jerusalem at the moment. Okay,
Mm.
so Israel is not averse. Israel is weaponizing every display of anti-Semitism, including apparently also putting on fake productions that are meant to stir emotions and stoke the flames and make sure there's anti-Semitism, which is, of course, doing real harm to actual Jewish communities who are suffering from anti-Semitism. Because
Yes.
it's definitely true that there is increased anti-Semitism in the world. You know, I am um, on the left, but even I get not vehement, violent anti-Semitic comments, but good anti-Semitic comments like, "Ori, don't worry, you're one of the good Jews." When
mm, mm,
something
mm,
happens to you,
mm,
come over to us and we'll take care of you. I,
mm,
should I tell these good people that they're being anti-Semitic? Of course they're being
mm,
anti-Semitic.
mm, mm,
But again, I think this has a lot to do, I agree with you, this has a lot to do with the Israeli posture. This has a lot to do with Israel's willingness to exploit any resource within its reach to present itself as wholly and unilaterally in the right, and not vis-a-vis left, but correct, proper.
yeah.
And as long as that is the case, Israel is crassly manipulating Jewish communities abroad. And I think there are a lot of Jews who don't live in Israel would who disagree with that. I think there are a lot of Jews who swallow that hook, line, and sinker. But I think
Mm,
there are a
mm,
lot of Jews who are living outside Israel who have real disagreement with the way Israel is appropriating their lives for its cause, who are angry at Israel making the public assumption, or not even assumption, but linking Jewish life outside Israel to support for war crimes and crimes against humanity and genocidal activities. So this is all happening, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. I can tell you that in Israel, siege mentality is worsening. The sense that the world is out to get us, regardless of what we do, is
mm,
very much a very broad consensus here. So I doubt we will see any of that weaponization decreasing, especially as the world grows wise to what to do about Israel when it's no
mm,
longer just about what heads of government decide to do, but it's about very practical measures like the West Midlands Police in the UK denying Israeli football fans entry to the Aston Villa grounds for the European League game.
right.
That's a very practical thing, and it comes from real security considerations.
Mm,
So
mm,
you can present that as anti-Semitism until you're blue in the face, but people are going to be doing just that. People are not going to want the trouble. An Israeli cycling team was thrown out of the Vuelta and the Giro d'Italia, the two big bicycle races in Spain and in Italy, because it disrupted the race. Because you had demonstrations at the end of stages, and other
yeah.
teams could not complete their stage, so they threw Israel out. That's what's going to happen. It's not going to be about whether Israel's right or the Palestinians are wrong. It's going to be about the risk of allowing Israelis in. And
Mm,
the more Israel weaponizes anti Semitism, the greater the risk will be. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So somebody's going to have to start thinking practically soon, because otherwise it's just going to get stronger.
it's it's not helped by some of the language that both Netanyahu and also other retired former Israeli prime ministers have been using on the public circuit as well. They do play the victim card a lot, rather heavy-handedly. I mean, you've got Prime Minister Netanyahu saying that Israel is fighting the war on behalf of civilization, against brutal barbaric tribes and so on and so forth. And
Judeo-Christian,
yeah,
Judeo-Christian sort of
Judeo-Christian,
a.
and well, whatever the hell that is. But yes, all of that. And it's so, um, yeah, I just don't know what to say about when an Israeli leader would be able to recognize the harm he's doing to Jewish people everywhere, in Israel, outside of Israel. Because if they actually understand that, they'll be able to pull back and normalize
Oh,
their relations. But
no, I think you're being way too nice, John. I think they understand it completely, and I think they're just vile. And you're
well,
not even talking about the derogatory comments made at world leaders like your prime minister
mm,
or the prime minister of Belgium about how,
yeah,
especially Prime Minister Albanese, how he's a weak leader and succumbing
mm,
to Islamic terrorism, and they're just. I really think this is an applicable word. They're vile. Okay, the
yeah,
language that Israeli leaders are using is vile. It is derogatory. It is pejorative. It is as offensive as it can be, and it is intentionally offensive.
mm,
Okay, why? Because Israel is going for broke. Israel wants to establish the fact that uh, um, criticism of its actions is regardless of its actions. That it's about the simple fact that we're Jewish and anti-Semitism and all that. And they're playing into uh, what I suppose is an inherent fear among Jewish communities abroad. But I get a sense that I've got some interesting followers who are in touch with me in Australia. I get a
Mm,
sense that even in Australia, where the Jewish community is very conservative and very
yes.
pro-Israel, the official institutions, there is now an alternative. There are other
Mm,
Jewish voices that are rising and saying, no, absolutely not, not in our name.
mm.
So Israeli leaders are doing it, look upon it not as a gesture of strength, but as a gesture of despair. They have no other
Yeah.
choice. There is
Mm,
absolutely no other way to defend what Israel is doing unless it is done at a grand, cosmic, conspiratorial scale, right?
mm,
Great
mm.
replacement, Judeo-Christian civilization, the unholy red-green alliance, call it what you will. That's the language Israeli leaders have to speak because there is no other language left to speak.
Uh, Someone from the other side would say, but Ori, this is the price of security. We have to be on a permanent war footing with everybody because we fear abandonment by everybody. So if we keep the heat on, if we keep the victimhood going, if we keep the idea that we're under threat constantly, I mean, what is the idea is Israel would not be secure if it would normalize its relations. Somehow it would lose its what, Jewishness if it became friends, genuine friends with Muslim partners, you know? I mean, well, so odd.
You,
Whereas the thing is that it would actually benefit Israel in
of
such a
course it would.
huge way. I just don't see it
Of
happen.
course, of course it would. Of course it would
Yeah,
benefit Israel. And this whole security thing, look, here's what Israeli security now amounts to. And there's
yeah,
no doubt that Israel is trying to pursue or superimpose a new security paradigm on the Middle East. But that security
mm,
paradigm consists of Israel enjoying complete freedom and complete impunity. Israel can do
yeah,
whatever it wants, whenever it wants, to whomever it wants, for how long it wants, and pay absolutely no cost or incur no cost as a consequence of what it's doing.
yeah,
That is the contradiction of security. That's the opposite of security, not just for Israel, for everybody. Why
mm,
would anybody sign on to that?